Welcome to my video on fixing quality in a small business. My name is Neil Potter with Improving Your Small Business. So the kind of issues I'm discussing in this video may be, for example, where you're doing service delivery and you have major errors and problems in how you deliver service. There are mistakes made. Sales problems where you either have proposals or meetings that are going to go bad and you lose the sale. Maybe invoicing and billing problems, and product creation where you're actually building a product of some kind and then delivering it, and there are errors and mistakes in the product. So this is a video about how to avoid those kind of mistakes. So there's a range of the kind of problems you're going to see in the company, all the way down here, customer mad, like they're ready to give up on you because of the mistakes being made by either by you or your staff. Lots of ways. So maybe the customer sees fewer mistakes because they're repaired at last minute, but you know that behind the scenes there's an awful lot of effort gone into fixing things before the customer kind of sees it. Customer okay, kind of middle range. There are some ways, so customer could be okay or pretty happy, but you know behind the scenes there's quite a few mistakes, not dramatic or overwhelming, but enough to kind of cause annoyance and lose money and time. And the goal is to kind of get up here. So if you're down here somewhere, or you're trying to maintain this, maybe you're up here and you want to maintain it, we'll discuss in the video how to achieve that. So the basic premise of the video is that if you have best practices defined clearly on one page, you're incorporating the company's best knowledge of how to do things. Therefore, you can train people and capture mistakes early. So the first thing to do is define a workflow. That would be 3 to 7 major events you go through. So my example here would be proposal, sales meeting, execution, which could be the biggest event, and then final work check and billing. You'll replace these column headings with your workflow, but the handful of the big major events you go through, they're really going to define the flow from the very beginning to the very end. Then we'll define the details below that. So again, one page, checklist style, covers essential steps. So these steps here, step 1, 2, and 3, or step 1 and 2, define the essential steps to go through to achieve that particular column. Again, we want to keep the whole thing on one page, easy to write, easy to read, easy to modify over time, easy to use. And then these steps or these checklists will also cover the mistakes you've made in the past. So if, for example, you've already had problems in sales meetings and it's always a lack of whatever the issue is, you make sure step 2 and the details cover those issues. So you're basically going to put into here the best practices of what you know to do as a company, and also cover problems you've had in the past so you don't forget those issues or steps next time. Now, if you can't write your process on one page because you live in a zoo-oriented organization where 15 people do the same job and they get in others' way, and there are jobs that never get done correctly because nobody's ever assigned, or materials over there and materials over here and invoices over there and billings over here, and the whole thing's just a dysfunctional nightmare, then as you start to write this down, I would say pause a little bit and fix the zoo. And so you're using this as a way to make the operation kind of work better, the way you want it to work, and then you're going to capture that. Now, ideally you don't live in a zoo situation, and therefore you actually can, within a couple of days, kind of write down a first version of this. But keep in mind, as you write it down, you can start to kind of identify major issues and simplify them as you're going to write it down. Now I've got one style here, kind of square with the flow along the top and the depth of the checklist below. You don't like that style, it's fine. Here's another style where kind of just an end-to-end flow, same thing, goes proposal, sales meeting, execution, and billing and final check. Okay. So let's discuss how to use this thing. Now, the premise of the video was to improve quality, make fewer mistakes, so we can train the staff and improve their skills. And so the checklist is now comprehending the best practices and previous errors made by the company, and so new people can learn the best way very quickly. Error prevention, so the checklist defines done. When we're really done with a particular contract, the last box should be checked, plus the other boxes. And so if there are boxes not checked and they are valid boxes for the particular contract, then we're not done yet. So we're basically defining done, making sure there are no loose ends in the delivery of the service of the product. And we can also do it for error detection. So we could have some people use the checklist in their work and then kind of recheck it at the end. So we could do a recheck of 100% to make sure the work is done correctly, like a double check. We could recheck high-risk areas, which could be kind of newer people. They get a bit more kind of hands-on assistance to check their work because they are new. Again, the goal is not to beat them up. The goal is to provide feedback and help them kind of learn the skills quicker. And we could do some random samplings too of the checklist. So we could have a second pair of eyes used for error detection to make sure things are done correctly. As you put the first checklist together and you use it over time, you want to improve upon it. Again, the checklist will not be perfect the first time, nor will the workflow you go through be perfect the first time. You know that now because you're watching the video with mistakes. And so the idea is as you learn things, okay, in the work being done, you may correct some of the checklist items, make them more real, or eliminate some of the trivial ones, add some of the ones that you've missed before, and bit by bit provide updates. There could be quite a few updates at the very beginning as you refine it, and then fewer updates as it becomes more mature downstream. Also, if there are mistakes you are making that are particularly chronic or particularly severe, you might just pause for an hour with your team and figure out the likely underlying causes. How do we get to the situation, and make sure some of the lessons learned in the checklist are actually captured. Also, from a positive perspective, if you see work being done particularly well by somebody or a team, you can do root cause on that and figure out what are they doing that may not be in the checklist right now that caused them to kind of do that thing well. They sell all the time. They deliver perfectly all the time. Okay, there could be things they are doing that could be captured, and so it's a root cause of a positive thing. So don't get wed to the first version of the checklist. Assume it's going to go through major revamps over time, and then maybe in a few months it becomes kind of settled and best practices. And then annual training, again, over a year, it could change quite a bit. People are using it still every time they do a transaction, but you're going to get the people together, maybe discuss how well it's going. Could be every 6 months or a year, and make sure the checklist is actually valid to them, they like it, and hasn't become a burden. There could be things that they learn how to do that become trivial, normal activity, and they probably go off the checklist because they are typical things they do all the time. And then the checklist may become a bit kind of streamlined or shorter because you then referring to the things they typically don't do well or the essential things they have forgotten before. Now, the idea of checklists and how they get used came out of this guy called Atal Gawande, who was a surgeon in Boston and was chartered with the idea of improving healthcare worldwide through the World Health Organization. And so after some work, he put a checklist together for surgery. And so what I like about this kind of style, this than the original one, is that he had a workflow, the top line, left to right, identify these major pause points where they could actually check for things. So we identify the major pause points too. And then below he put the essential things you should check for in that particular event. Okay. So there's a whole set of guidelines available that go along with building checklists. You don't have to get into the details. I think you know enough already. If you look at the results of his checklist, even in the surgical business, they actually did some studies on some serious gains they got out of a one-page checklist. Just because people were in a rush, or they would forget things, or they would not be particularly humble, and they would say, I don't need to know that. But then when they use the checklist, they kind of found major mistakes very quickly. So it is a simple way, an easy way to capture the best of the company's knowledge in a simple fashion and use it to kind of make fewer mistakes over time. So thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel below. Put any comments and questions down below too. I'll be happy to answer them. If you like this video, you might like the one on the left, how to succeed in a small business, and the one on the right, barriers that prevent customers from buying. Thank you. Bye-bye.